And we are back, and we are very honored to have with us today Congressman, I call him Congressman Peter Hoekstra. He wants to be called Pete. He is the long-term serving, just as far as I'm concerned, the best congressman we've had in this country. Peter Hoekstra, good morning.
Hey, good morning. Good to be with you. Thank you.
And along with us as co-host, as we earlier talked about, David Wells. David is bringing the legal mind here to interrogate poor Pete. So good morning again to you, David. Well, the reason you're here, of course, is we've got a big election coming up in not very long, a couple weeks. Republican primary for the United States Senate. And, of course, Pete, you've been well-versed in how our government works. We've had Debbie Stabenow as our senator representing the state of Michigan for almost 12 years now. Debbie would like to make it 18. And a lot of folks think that you're the guy that can knock her off. You've got two challengers at this point in the Republican primary. And I think that the question that has come up more often than not when I talk to people about this very important August 7th primary to see who will be the Republican challenger to Debbie Stabenow is not so much your conservative history, which I do want to talk about, but we need somebody who can beat Debbie, someone who's got the legs, the organization to come November to triumph over Debbie. I know that you've been asked this question before. Tell us, okay, why is Pete the guy?
Well, I think if you want to beat an incumbent senator, it's going to be very, very difficult. I know that because I beat an incumbent long-term congressman 26 years ago.
That's true.
I know how hard it is to beat an incumbent. You need to have a candidate in a campaign, number one, that has the creativity to develop the strategy to go against a long-term incumbent. We proved that in 1992, and I think we're going to be able to prove that again in 2012. The second thing is you've got to have the candidate that can put together the entire campaign. Some of the folks that are still involved in this primary, they're running a media campaign. They're hoping that they can get enough negative ads on TV from outside organizations that can take down Hoekstra. Well, the objective here is not about beating Pete Hoekstra. The objective here is getting a conservative U.S. senator, and you are not going to beat Debbie just by thinking that you can get some outside money in and run some negative campaigns and run some negative ads. We've put together the full campaign here that includes cable television, network television, direct mail, a whole sign strategy, a whole absentee voter program. I've put together the entire campaign that I think on August 7th at 8 p.m. is going to be fully ready to engage Debbie Stabenow in a full race for this Senate seat. So we've got the capacity, the capability, the creativity to win this race. The other thing is you take a look at it, our campaign, representing West Michigan, coming from West Michigan, is a perfect complement to our presidential nominee, Mitt Romney, from Southeast Michigan. So if you take a look at what happened in the presidential primary, Mitt was rock solid in Southeast Michigan. Rick Santorum was rock solid in West Michigan.
Yeah, Rick had great success here in the
primary. He had great success. And so what you do is you bring those two forces together. My base, which is Grand Rapids, Muskegon, Holland, Western Michigan, running up against or running with Mitt's strength out of Southeast Michigan. It makes it a twofer. We elect a senator and we win these electoral votes for Mitt Romney. And so, we end up with a new president and a new Senate in Washington. That doesn't even start getting into this. I've been campaigning, statewide either for governor and now in the Senate race. It'll be over 2 years. You need that kind of name recognition around the state if you expect to be the next senator.
Well, you're certainly well known here in West Michigan, and I think that many of us, certainly those who are politically astute, are aware of it, but many of us in the state and nationally remember you as the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee during some extraordinarily difficult and challenging years. And we saw you on TV a lot.
Yeah, that's right. And It's not better being on TV or anything like that. It was being able to get the job done that needed to be done by the Intelligence Committee. You know, we worked with the Senate. We reformed the intelligence community in 2004 with a major piece of legislation. And that legislation has worked to keep us safe as a country for the last 8 years. You know, there's not been an attack on the homeland since that time. We also led the effort to rebuild the intelligence community, you know, the CIA. All of these things that, you know, President Obama's taking credit for, you know, about being tough on terrorists and these types of things, it would not have been capable of happening if we hadn't rebuilt the capabilities of the intelligence community under President Bush and under the leadership that me and others provided on the Intelligence Committee. We provided them with the latitude, the resources to do the job to keep us safe.
Well, one thing that I'm impressed with is I'm not totally impressed with experience, but in your case I am, because not only were you the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, which was, again, tremendously important at the time and still is, but you were able to bring together Democrats and Republicans together on that committee to accomplish some changes. And you told us a little story earlier about that. Maybe you could extrapolate on that a bit.
Sure. I mean, you know, in 2004, and immediately after 2001, 9/11, everybody recognized that the intelligence community had not done what was necessary to keep us safe. They hadn't identified the threat, they hadn't prepared us, and we didn't build the defenses against radical jihadism. So what we did is, in 2004, I was assigned the task to lead a conference committee that brought together a conservative Republican from West Michigan, myself, brought together one of the more liberal members of the House of Representatives, a Democrat from Los Angeles, Jane Harman, brought together an independent senator, Joe Lieberman from Connecticut, and Susan Collins, a moderate Republican from Maine. You know, they put us in the room and they said, all right, hammer out a compromise to reform the intelligence community and enable it to be successful, to identify the threats that are out there, to combat those threats, and hopefully to defeat those threats. 3.5 months later, we had an intelligence reform bill. Is it the bill that Pete Hoekstra would have written? No, I would have written it differently. But was it a bill that, you know, the four of us could agree on as being a great bill that would significantly improve the intelligence community and that would keep America safe, that would pass the House, that would pass the Senate, and would get the signature of the President. And that bill did all of those things. I never felt I had to compromise my principles to get to that point. And we were able to get to that point because, number one, we were all competent on the issue. We all understood intelligence. We all understood the legislative process. And the second thing is we all liked each other. Well, I mean, Jane Harman was, you know, we probably couldn't find, you could find a couple of other people, but, you know, our voting records on conservative liberal scale would be very, very far apart. But we liked each other, and we recognized that it was important to the country to get intelligence reform completed and start implementing it, and we did, and it's working.
Well, that's what I would call legislating, getting a group of desperate people together and then getting the legislation passed. I've yet to hear any type of legislation that Debbie Stabenow has really driven and succeeded. Are you going to be going after her on that? Because even though you don't have the experience as a senator, you most certainly have the experience as a responsible legislator.
Well, we'll talk about it pretty extensively. I mean, she's been on the Budget Committee in the Senate for the last 3 years. The Senate hasn't passed a budget in 3 years. Are we at all surprised that we've got, you know, mushrooming deficits, that the debt is skyrocketing out of control? We're not at all surprised. Why? Because the Senate can't even pass a budget. She's a critical member of a leader in the U.S., quote unquote. She's supposed to be a leader in the U.S. Senate and is on a committee that's totally dysfunctional. She's the chairperson of the Ag Committee.
Sure. We just saw what $3 billion directed. I believe it was at the state of Michigan from Debbie. She wrote us a check, I guess, or something.
Yeah, I don't think she may have facilitated the writing of a check, but the bottom line, the money's not out there. Anywhere else in the world, that check would probably bounce, and it's because she can't get a budget passed through the budget committee. On the ag committee, sure, the Senate has passed an ag bill this year. Big deal. It's not going to become law. She hasn't had the opportunity, and she hasn't provided the leadership to get a bill through the House, the Senate, and get it to the president's desk and have it signed into law. You know, it's always easy when you're in the majority to pass a bill if you're the chairman of the committee. The key is, do you have the capacity to help bring the process forward and actually get, you know, this is the old thing when you're, the difference between a bill and a law when you're going to, you know, you're going to school. How does a bill become a law?
I'm just a bill.
I'm just a bill. That's right. And I think what you can say about Debbie is that she's got a lot of things in her portfolio that are just a bill and not much in terms of it's a law.